My name is Rosa, and I used to be a hopeless romantic, key phrase being used to be. But let me take you back to the days when my heart fluttered at the mere thought of love. When I first met Sam, it felt like a cliche ripped straight from the pages of a romance novel. It was autumn, and the world was a myriad of oranges and yellows, a vivid backdrop to our budding love story. We met at a mutual friend's gathering. The minute I walked into the cozy living room, festively decorated with fairy lights and adorned with the aroma of pumpkin spice, my eyes locked onto his. Sam was engrossed in a conversation, but he looked up just in time to meet my gaze. "Hey," he said, disentangling himself from his conversation and walking towards me. "I'm Sam." "Rosa," I replied, feeling the chemistry ignite between us. We spoke for what felt like hours, but was actually only a matter of minutes. Our conversation flowed naturally, from work and hobbies to deeper, more meaningful topics like dreams, values, and even the concept of a forever. "So you believe in forever, hum?" Sam looked into my eyes as we talked, a subtle grin forming on his face. "I do," I said, "but it has to be the right kind of forever. One where both people keep choosing each other day after day." Sam's face lit up. "That's exactly how I see it too." From that night on, Sam and I were inseparable. We went on dates that felt like mini adventures, took weekend trips that seemed like escapades to magical worlds, and shared quiet evenings at home that felt as comforting as a warm blanket on a chilly night. It was like the universe itself had conspired to make us meet, to be together, to create our own version of forever. Within a year, he proposed. The ring was beautiful, but what was even more breathtaking was the sincerity in his eyes. My answer was a resounding yes, echoing not just in that moment, but throughout our relationship. We had a wedding that seemed straight out of a dream, one that would give even fairy tales a run for their money. My family was ecstatic, and my friends envied the love we had for each other. To make things even better, I got along splendidly with my soon-to-be mother-in-law, Ellen. She welcomed me into the family like her own daughter. Ellen and I spent time shopping for the wedding together, discussing life and the family's history over cups of tea. She seemed genuinely interested in my well-being, often checking in on me during the whirlwind of wedding preparations. "Rosa, are you sure you're okay with this shade of white for the decor? It should be your dream wedding, not mine," Ellen would often say. "Ellen, as long as Sam is at the end of the aisle, any shade of any color works for me," I'd reply, my heart full of love and eyes filled with future dreams. Ah, how naive I was, basking in the glow of a love that seemed unbreakable and a life that felt complete. But as they say, when things seem too good to be true, they probably are. Little did I know that this dream would soon turn into a nightmare, one that would challenge not just my beliefs, but the very core of who I thought I was. If Chapter 1 of my life with Sam was a dream, then Chapter 2 was the harsh splash of cold water that woke me up from it. A year had passed since our wedding. 365 days of what seemed like marital bliss. Sam was still figuring out his career path, exploring different opportunities and jumping between jobs. But it was okay. Love would see us through, or so I thought. Then came the call that would shift the dynamics of our relationship. Ellen had lost her job. "Rosa, can you come home early? We need to talk." Sam's voice trembled on the other end of the phone. When I got home, I found him pacing around the living room, a look of distress painting his face. Ellen was there too, sitting on the sofa with an air of defeat. "What happened? Is everything okay?" I asked, my heart pounding with a vague sense of impending doom. "It's Mom," Sam finally said. She lost her job today. She can't afford to pay her rent anymore. Ellen chimed in, I've looked into downsizing or moving to a cheaper place, but even that's not possible right now. I have nothing, Rosa. I looked at Sam and then at Ellen. His eyes met mine, filled with a silent plea. It was a difficult situation, one that neither of us had expected to face so early in our marriage. We could help her move in here, Sam suggested tentatively. Sam, you know our place is too small for that, especially since you've set up your home office, I said, thinking aloud. He nodded. Knowing the reality of our living situation made that option impractical. I can't cover the rent for Mom, he finally admitted, avoiding eye contact. I'm barely covering my part of our bills. I paused, considering our options. I was making decent money, not a fortune, but enough to live comfortably and save a bit on the side. I glanced at Ellen, her face a mix of worry and shame. I couldn't leave her stranded. She was family now, whether I liked it or not. It's okay, Sam. I can take care of it, I assured him. I'll pay for Ellen's rent until she gets back on her feet. She's family. The relief that washed over his face was immediate, as if I'd lifted 100-pound weight off his shoulders. Ellen looked at me, her eyes welling up with tears. Thank you, Rosa, she said softly. I can't tell you how much this means to me. It's fine, Ellen. We're family, and this is what families do for each other, I said, pushing aside the small voice in my head that whispered warnings of caution. I had no idea then that this act of goodwill would be the catalyst for the unraveling of the life I'd envisioned. Unbeknownst to me, my generosity was setting the stage for a series of events that would reveal the true characters of the people I'd pledged to stand by in good times and bad. That night, as I lay beside Sam, I couldn't shake off a sense of foreboding, but I pushed it away, convincing myself that I'd done the right thing, that this was just a rough patch, and that soon enough, we'd go back to living our dream. How wrong I was. For the next 2 months, life unfolded in a monotonous rhythm. Each time I transferred $6,000 for Ellen's rent, a part of me felt the financial strain, but another part felt a sense of moral righteousness. I was supporting family, and in my book, that meant something. Sam continued his search for what he considered his true calling, which effectively meant he was still stuck in the low-paying job he didn't like. Then, one chilly afternoon, as the first leaves of fall began to descend, so too did my carefully curated world. My phone buzzed on my desk. The screen displayed the name Horror Department. Rosa, could you come to the conference room, please? Said the voice on the other end of the line. My heart sank. Meetings with her were rarely good news. I entered the conference room to find the AR manager sitting across from an empty chair. Her face was stern, eyes barely making contact with mine. Please have a seat, Rosa, she said. I sat down, bracing myself for impact. We're having to make some cutbacks, and I'm afraid your position is one of those that have been eliminated, she said, her words slicing through the air like a cold blade. I felt as if the ground had been ripped from beneath me. Is there no way to reconsider this? Can I possibly move to a different department? I'm afraid not, Rosa. The decision is final, she said, handing me a folder that contained the exit paperwork. I gathered my things from my desk, my mind racing, my heart pounding. What would I tell Sam? What would I tell Sam? What about Ellen's rent? What about our bills? Our plans? Our future? When I reached home, Sam was in the living room, scrolling through his phone. The TV was on, but it was evident he wasn't watching. Hey, how was your day? He asked, not looking up from his phone. Not good, Sam. We need to talk, I said, my voice trembling. He put his phone down and looked at me, concern painting his face. What happened? I lost my job today. They let me go because of some cutbacks. I stammered, my eyes filling with tears. Oh, he simply responded as if I told him the sky was blue or the grass was green. Sam. Oh. That's all you have to say. I couldn't believe his casual, almost indifferent reaction. What do you want me to say, Rosa? These things happen, he retorted, finally showing some emotion, though not the kind I was expecting. But we have bills and your mother's rent. What are we going to do? I asked, almost pleading. We? Seems like it's been you paying for Mom lately, he snapped. The air became thick with tension, each word hanging heavier than the last. It was as if a mask had been lifted, revealing the true face of our relationship. Sam was not the pillar of support I had imagined him to be, and I was suddenly, terribly, alone. Things took an even darker turn when Ellen found out. The woman who'd once treated me like a daughter now looked at me like a burden, an inconvenience. It became clear that I had been useful only as long as I served their needs. In a matter of days, I went from being a cherished family member to an outcast, the love and warmth evaporating like morning dew under the harsh sun. This was the tipping point, the moment where everything I believed about love and family shattered into a million irrecoverable pieces. I realized then that when people show you their true colors, it's essential to believe them the first time. But that didn't mean I had to play the part they'd assigned me. And so the seeds for my eventual departure and revenge were sown in the wake of my job loss and the stark revelation of Sam and Ellen's true colors. I realized that I needed space to breathe and think. I couldn't stay in an environment that turned hostile the moment I couldn't be the financial pillar. My self-worth was defined by more than my bank balance, something Sam and Ellen seemed to have forgotten, or perhaps never understood in the first place. I'm thinking of moving to a rented apartment, I said one evening, breaking the ongoing uncomfortable silence. Sam looked up from his laptop, surprised and somewhat puzzled. You're leaving. Where will you go? What about us? I almost laughed at the absurdity of his questions. What us, Sam? The use is that only works if I'm paying for everything. The use is that only exists when it's convenient for you? Rosa, you can't just walk away from a marriage like that, he protested, his tone increasingly desperate. I think I can, I said, eyes meeting his, especially when that marriage is only functional when I'm useful to you. Sam seemed at a loss for words, as if the notion that I could decide to walk away was completely foreign to him. So what's the plan? You'll leave and let everything fall apart. I'll take care of myself, I replied, and I suggest you do the same. It didn't take long to find a decent apartment that I could afford with my savings. I signed the lease, packed my essentials, and within days, I was out of the house that no longer felt like home. Ellen made a last-ditch effort to keep me around when she called me right before I left. Rosa, dear, can we talk about this? We're family. Family doesn't abandon each other when things get tough, Ellen, I responded, my voice icy cold. But we can work this out. I'm looking for jobs. I'll pay you back, she pleaded. Pay me back, as if this was a loan. This was supposed to be family supporting each other, remember? I snapped. I'm sorry, Rosa. Truly I am, she said, her voice softening. Your apologies would have meant something if they had come without a price tag, I said, ending the call and the chapter of my life that included them. Moving into the new apartment felt like breaking free from a suffocating space. The absence of Sam's and Ellen's judgments filled the rooms with a peaceful quietude. I could finally breathe, think, and most importantly, plan my next moves without the weight of their expectations. I had my savings to live on for a while, but I knew I needed to get back on my feet. I updated my resume, reached out to contacts, and started applying for jobs. As the days turned into weeks, I felt the tension ease out of my shoulders. I was alone, but it was far better than the loneliness I felt when I was with people who were supposed to be my family. I was starting over, and while the path ahead was uncertain, I knew one thing. The break was necessary. I had been holding up a mirror to people who couldn't even face their own reflections. It was time to hold that mirror up to myself, and the reflection looking back was ready for the journey ahead, wherever it might lead. 2 months had gone by since I moved out, and life was slowly but surely getting back on track. I went through a series of interviews and finally landed a job that was not only better than my previous one, but also came with a higher salary. It was a sweet victory, a tangible sign that life could improve even after hitting rock bottom. Just when I was starting to relish my newfound stability, the calls started coming in. First, it was Ellen. "Rosa, it's been a while," she began, her voice tinged with a false sweetness that I could now easily detect. "What do you want, Ellen?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. "I just wanted to see how you're doing. We miss you, you know," she said, attempting to inject sincerity into her words. "Cut the act. If you're calling to ask for money, the answer is no," I retorted. "But I found a job. I'll be able to pay you back. Just help me with this month's rent," she pleaded. "Too late, Ellen. The time for that has long passed," I said before hanging up. Then came the call from Sam, which I had been half expecting. "Rosa, it's Sam," he stammered, the hesitation apparent in his voice. "I've been doing some thinking, and I miss you. I realize I messed up, and I'm sorry." "Your realization doesn't change the past, Sam," I replied, emotionless. "I lost my job too, Rosa." "I understand the pressure you are under now," he confessed. "So, now that you're in the same boat, you suddenly develop empathy. Funny how that works," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Can't we just put this behind us? Start over?" he implored. I paused for a moment, contemplating his words. Here was my chance for revenge, to give them a taste of their own medicine. "All right, Sam, here's the deal. I'll pay for Ellen's rent and help you out for a month, but you need to sign divorce papers. Once the divorce is finalized, I'll transfer the money to you and Ellen." For a moment, there was silence. "You're serious?" he finally asked. "As a heart attack," I said. Sam agreed reluctantly, and true to my word, I sent them the divorce papers. They signed, and as soon as I got the finalized copy back, I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. The chapter was closed. The ties were cut. However, I never transferred the money. The revenge was complete. Their own greed and selfishness had led them to a point where they were willing to sever what should have been an unbreakable bond for the sake of financial gain. I didn't need to do anything more. They had done it to themselves. The phone calls and texts came pouring in, filled with anger, disbelief, and empty apologies. But I remained steadfast. I blocked their numbers and relished in my newfound freedom. I had held up my end of the deal. I had offered them a fresh start. They just never realized it was a fresh start for me, not them. Revenge was never my intention, but sometimes life puts you in situations where the only way to gain closure is to turn the tables. And as I sat in my new apartment, a sense of peace washed over me. The revenge was complete, but more importantly, so was my transformation. I was no longer the Rosa who could be manipulated and used. I was a new Rosa, one who understood her worth and would never again compromise it for anyone. In the aftermath of my revenge, I felt like a snake that had shed its skin, emerging anew and leaving the old, tattered self behind. But this wasn't the end of my story. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter, one where I finally got to be the author. One evening, as I was sitting on my balcony sipping a glass of wine, My phone buzzed with a message. It was from Tina, a former colleague. "Hey, Rosa. Long time no see." "How've you been?" the message read. "I've been better, but I'm doing great now. How about you?" I texted back. "I'm good. We're hiring for a senior position in my company, and I immediately thought of you." My heart skipped a beat. A senior position would be a big leap in my career. "Definitely interested. Can you send me the details?" Tina sent me the job description, and I realized that I was a perfect fit. I shot my application and, thanks to Tina's referral, soon found myself in an interview with the director. "So, Rosa, why do you think you're a good fit for this role?" the director asked. "Because I have a deep understanding of the industry. I'm driven, and I know how to manage a team to get results. But most importantly," I paused, "I faced challenges that have made me resilient and adaptable, qualities I think are essential for this role." "You seem very confident," he noted, intrigued. "Confidence is born out of surviving struggles you never thought you could," I replied. The director seemed impressed, and a week later, I received an offer for the senior position. The salary was more than generous. It was life-changing. I couldn't help but see the poetic justice in it all. I had lost a job, but found a better one. I had lost a husband, but found myself. And now, life was giving me a fresh slate to not just write, but publish my own story. During my first week in the new role, Tina and I went out for celebratory drinks. "Congrats, boss lady," Tina toasted, clinking her glass against mine. "Thank you, but it's your toast that should be louder." "You're the one who referred me," I said, smiling. "Ah, well, talent recognizes talent," she winked. As I sipped my champagne, I couldn't help but think about Sam and Ellen. Not with anger or bitterness, but with a kind of detached pity. They had given me the nudge, however cruel, to break free and find my path. And yet, I knew I wouldn't be where I was without the trials I'd been through. For once, I felt grateful for the hardships, as they had sculpted me into a stronger, more resilient individual. Sam and Ellen were but minor characters in a larger epic, one where I was